How are you feeling in today's energy? Have you been experiencing a feeling of needing to prepare? What is the difference between using intuitive information to prepare and living in fear?
And welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self. We are always so glad to have you. And thank you so much for being here and sharing this space with us.
Yes. And I hope everyone is doing well out there.
Mhm.
And Carrie and I have been really feeling certain things lately. I mean, it feels strong whenever I'm actually realizing or tapping in or checking in on self, which I like to do periodically. And I know Carrie does too. We have a tendency to say, "Hey, how's your day going?" when we're chatting. And then I'll be like, "Oh man, I'm feeling this weird urgency." And that's kind of what's been going on lately is that I feel this urgency to do something. So it's got this anxiousness to it is the best way I know how to describe it.
Interestingly enough, Shira and I discussed this earlier, I think a week ago. It was interesting because this was the first time I think we've truly had a conversation about this, like specifically feeling the need to make some changes in
Mhm.
our life so that we can live sustainably, not just like reduce, reuse, recycle, but are able to what's the word that I'm looking for? Have we are self but basically, we're able to live safely and reliably without having to rely on outside sources.
Right.
So, along the lines of we feel this need to prepare, to have access to food in ways that we may not currently in our stores, easily
Right.
accessible. And we may have been this I question if this hasn't been building over the past few years, but it feels different. It's shifted because when the
Right.
pandemic started, it was like
Panic.
fear-based
Right.
panic. Yes. "Oh, let's go clean out the shelves and everybody's gotta get an extra bag of white rice or an extra bag of flour or sugar," and just
Yeah.
having things just in case. But this is feels a little bit different, and it's not quite as panic driven, but just this need to make some changes like growing a garden, which Shire and I laugh about this because we do not have green thumbs
Oh, I most certainly don't.
and we have never had the drive or interest to build a garden and start growing our own food. Maybe a little bit like as far as,
Yeah.
"Oh, that'd be cool,"
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
But now we're actually taking steps to do this in our homes. Well, not inside, but, in our backyards. And it was interesting because we hadn't really talked about this between us until about a week or so ago. And as soon as you and I started talking about it, we actually had experiences where we were hearing other people share
Mhm.
similar feelings, whether it
Yep.
was on, different podcasts or different, YouTube shows or lives, or even just in our conversations with coworkers or friends.
That was a very validating feeling because you and I mean, we deep dived into it and we'd like to kind of recapture a bit of that conversation here today. But when we were diving into this back and forth between the two of us, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're feeling that too?" And I was like, "Okay, so we don't want to go in a fear-based state." I don't feel that, and I think I said that to you. I don't feel fearful about it.
Mhm.
It's more of like, how can you be fearful of something if you're prepared for it?
Yeah.
And then immediately, like she was just saying, immediately after we had that conversation, I mean, it was just within minutes. I started listening to one of my favorite podcasts and they were talking about it. And I was like, how is that happening? And then I think a couple of days later, I was listening, to a couple of, some people that I like to follow their lives and stuff. And they brought it up. One was based on an astrology reading. Like one of the
Mhm.
lives was all about astrology and what's going on in the charts and everything. And they were talking about, well, based on the astrology charts, in the next, I would say 3 to 5 years, we're going to be experiencing, maybe a slowdown in production and food and, things like that. And hey, don't worry, don't panic. Everyone's going to be fine, but get prepared, be
Maybe not
prepared.
everyone, most of us. There will
Right.
still be people that plan to exit,
Right.
or
Right.
choose
And
to
there's
exit.
Right, and there's gonna there's always when there's change, those that are not willing to accept the change or prepare for the change will struggle in the change, right? So, that is a common thing for us beautiful humans, and it's part of the experience of being here. However, I just found it so validating that we were having that feeling and discussing that, and then to
Mhm,
hear
mhm.
so many others that we don't talk to, and I don't know if they listen to us, I don't think so, it was just very validating.
And I used an analogy with you to help me describe this feeling because you're right. It's not this fear based panic, doom and gloom. It was the best thing that I could relate this to. And again, I don't have kids, so I can't directly confirm that this is the same feeling. But from what I understand of the feeling, it feels very similar. When a woman is pregnant and the baby's birth is nearing, she experiences a phenomenon called nesting,
Mm.
and she wants to prepare the room for the baby. So you get everything ready. You set up the crib and you fold all the clothes and hang them up or put them away. You prepare the space for this coming of this human. That's the closest feeling that I can relate this to without having actually experienced that. Is it feels like this need to just prepare the space for this event of this coming, of maybe having less access or not having supplies as easily or readily available or having to MacGyver stuff.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Get your extra roll of duct tape, y'all.
Makes sense. That definitely makes sense. What was interesting was we were having this conversation and I was it was a break at work and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go grab, some coffee and a snack and while we're still talking. And as I got to where I was going and I'm safely in a car, I stopped. I all of a sudden received this full visual of this blue being. I know this is gonna sound strange, so bear with me, y'all. So when I saw her, she, blue, again, her skin's blue. I started focusing on this outfit that she was wearing, which was this like skin tight suit that was a darker shade of blue than her skin, but she had these white racing stripes going down the front side over each shoulder, but they were illuminated. And so
Mm,
they looked like light moving on the
mm,
borders of these stripes. And I asked her, I was like, first of all, this is wild. I'm literally just pulling up out of a work day to get food and talking to my best friend on the phone, and you just come out of nowhere. But she was so calm, and her information was like, I work in the realm of predicting timelines of sorts for your planet. These are her words. And her name is Ara, by the way. I did ask her. And I was like, "Okay, so what are you seeing?" And she was explaining that there was a very high probability that we're going to start experiencing a shift in dynamics of the feminine and the masculine energies. She spoke about that. And with that shift, you'll see more of the feminine energies having a higher role in leadership to manage the masculine aspect of, and this is her words, AI, technology, and farming, and people starting to do more of that within their own home dwellings. And
mm.
I was like, okay, further validating what we had been feeling. And so I found that really interesting because, again, that calmness. And I think I told you about that, Carrie, when we were talking about it, like her feeling of like, oh, it's no big deal. You'll be fine, you know?
Mhm.
And I was like, "Wait a minute, you just dropped a bomb on me, like, what 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 are you how are you so calm right now?" But it was kinda interesting to, like, experience that.
I
It was
think it's
very interesting.
that just reminds me or makes me think of, we get so focused, hyper focused on the now human experiences in this lifetime that we forget that past this lifetime, everything will be okay.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put that. I remember talking to my coach, and she was like when I told her about this experience, she's like, "First off, you should share that." And I was like, "Yeah, that's new." And then second off, I was like, "Well, I still can't wrap my head around how calm she was about it." And we were kind of joking because she was like, "Well, she doesn't live on this planet clearly, so she doesn't have to
She
experience
doesn't
it."
have to deal with it, so
So we kind of laughed about that, and I was like, "Point taken."
But I actually started looking into the astrology charts to see as well because I was curious, and I have not listened to any of the episodes that you have of the people going through the astrology chart and talking about it. But when I was looking at it and I was sharing with you what I was seeing, that's when you actually told me about those
Yeah.
and confirmed that what I was saying, my guesstimate was about 3.5 years. It's going to be a little bit of needing to learn to be self-sustaining. That was the word I was looking for, self-sustaining.
Self-sustaining. Hilarious.
But yeah, I think it'll be roughly 3.5 years.
Wow.
And again, it's like, how do we use this information to prepare ourselves rather than living in fear of it? Because these tools of prediction, they're just tools of possibilities, of probabilities. And it's to help us, to guide us in how to navigate going forward.
Yeah.
So, why not use some of the information and learn some things like gardening? One little thing that when we were talking about this, I was like, why are we trying to do all these things on our own?
Mm. I remember that. Yeah.
Each one of us is trying to build our own garden in our backyard and figure out how to collect rainwater and filter it and make it clean so we can drink it. And we're all trying to do this as individuals.
Yeah.
So it'd be really cool to have like this co-op small community style where we're each taking responsibility for like certain foods that we're growing, and we share and we care and we work together as a community.
Yep. And community is important. It's a really big part of the human experience. And learning how to do things like sharing, it's an expression of love.
Mhm. Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think one commonality, and this is an assumption. I'll be honest. This is my assumption. But I think one commonality in receiving these intuitive hits is those that are more connected with their feminine, not necessarily women, but people that are more connected with their feminine are receiving these intuitive hits a little bit more openly.
Mm.
Again, that's an assumption. I'd be curious for the listeners if they wanna give feedback, what are you experiencing? Have you felt any of this need to prepare? And again, I'm not trying to make a judgment on it. It's just we've received some feedback from people in our lives that they're not getting these hits. And so we're wondering a little bit about what
Right.
the common thread is in those that are receiving this drive and not.
Yeah. That makes sense. I'm interested in also seeing how those that are listening to this are feeling too with like, are you getting anxious? Do you
Mhm.
feel anxious? Are you looking at your own expressions of your anxious feeling, right? Are you asking the question, why do I feel like this today? And in part of doing that, understanding where it's coming from, connecting with where it's coming from is a really good step to, in my opinion, getting prepared, right?
Mhm.
And so for Carrie and I, we were feeling it. We looked into it. We started to understand it, right? And that led us to receiving the information like she said about getting more prepared to food solutions, clean water, things of that nature. So the next things that we started doing was, all right, well, cool, let's not panic then, right? Let's figure that out. So what did we do? We googled gardening books cuz we need to learn, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And I remember telling you, I was like, "I'm not trying to be a doomsday preparer or anything of that nature, but, like, at the same time, what if technology went down and I didn't have access virtually to a book? Cool. I'm gonna go to Amazon and take a look at some actual physical paper books and see what I can find and learn from there just in case I need a guide, like gardening for dummies or whatever. So
Yeah.
I actually picked that up in the bookstore yesterday and I looked at it and I was like, I feel like I could do better than this. And I put it back. I'm gonna learn. But yeah, I mean, that's part of the hope that I have for other people is that when you first understand where the fear is coming from or where the anxiety or anxiousness or those types of energies are coming from, and you step in to yourself and you come to the conclusion of what that is, go with your gut instincts, your intuition. I'm winking at the camera, and just find a way to be more prepared towards that feeling.
Mhm,
If you feel something's coming up, that's something for you to just acknowledge and then get prepared for. So you can just remove that fear-based thought process, the thing that's going to cause you the anxiety, the thing that's going to allow you, because again, that's you controlling your emotions there, right? But like allow you to just be prepared in whatever scenario that could possibly come up. And you
mhm.
can use this in anything, not just what we're talking about today. Rant
And
over.
if you feel like you don't trust your intuition, go back to episode 84. It's logic versus intuition. Great guidance there about some practices that you can do to build your relationship with your intuition, with your gut feelings, so that you can learn to trust it and learn to ask questions and trust the guidance that you're receiving.
Yeah, absolutely. You wanna ask Ara questions? Because before we hit record, I started calling her in, and I was like, "Okay, you're new to me, so I'm not gonna trans channel or anything like that, but I'm just gonna ask her some questions and see what she wants to provide. The information that we are sharing will, of course, always be for our highest and greatest good. I only operate in light and I only receive information from the light, from a love space. For those of you listening, I recommend that when you are receiving information that is channeled from others, to please do your bubble meditation of light. So, this is just a quick practice to close your eyes, imagine a bubble around you that is surrounding you, and it is made of nothing but pure white light, and nothing can penetrate that white light without your permission. Always and always, 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 and R is actually saying this, use your discernment. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Okay?
Mhm. Thank you. All right. So Shire's going to take just a few moments, raise her vibration, connect with her breath, allow R to come in with her.
Yeah,
Mhm,
she's saying she's present. She's got such a beautiful smile. It's it's so unique because it's not human, but it is human. It's humanoid, I guess.
mm,
I just want to describe her. I feel like this is important because I keep getting this sense that there might be others out there listening that have also experienced her. It does seem like she connects with quite a few humans. So she's got it's almost like when hair is so blonde, it's kind of white shimmering.
mhm, mhm.
So that's what her hair is like. It's very long, it's straight, but it has a little bit of wave to her. Her eyes are much larger than ours, but they're quite piercing. It almost looks like she has moons, like crescent moons in the sides of her pupils. Her face is slender. Her chin is kind of a little bit smaller. She has really long eyelashes. And again, she's got that her skin is blue, by the way. It's like I don't even know how to describe this blue. It doesn't feel like any kind of blue that I've ever seen, and I've got a lot of blue in my office. So it has like a glistening to it, but it also goes matte every once in a while. So it's almost like this like wave, almost like you can okay. So you can see this like wave of energy that moves through her. And when it does that, it has a glistening to her skin. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And again, she's wearing a darker blue, kind of like the color of my walls behind me, and racing stripes. I keep wanting to point out the racing stripes, and I'm sorry for that, to the listeners if I'm repeating myself here, but this is like some kind of as she's explaining it to me, it's some kind of like a guard in energy, right? So it doesn't al this it helps protect her energy because her energy is sensitive, is what she's saying, and
It's like a surge protector?
yeah, kinda, yeah. So it's in like her suit is intelligent. It has
Mm,
intelligence to it. So that's really cool. Organic material is what she's saying. Okay.
Like
Um,
bioluminescent.
mhm. Yeah. A life of its own sometimes. That's funny. Okay. So, Carrie, do you have any questions for her?
First off, how can we best prepare as individuals and collective?
Okay. She's bringing up doing your daily health checks. She's referring to something I have to do for work and like doing your daily health checks, listening to your body more often. She's also pointing to the fact that I've been smelling chemicals in our water and to pay attention to that, which is why I keep getting the downloads of looking into clean water solutions.
Mm,
So that's interesting. She said that I have received messages before in relation to food and consuming food and how that would change naturally as the progression of humanity changes. And so she's elaborating on that. She's saying that the reason she stays so calm about where humanity is going and the things that are, she's saying predicted to happen, probable, probability. I'm sorry, she's saying probability. And she's saying that the need to grow your own food also comes from the need to provide yourself with clean food, things that don't
mm,
possess a lot of chemicals, more and more as the earth increases its consciousness and vibration. So will all the living things on it. And as that happens, oh, okay. And as that happens, your vibratory state of your own being will increase. And with that, it will no longer accept things that are not good for it. So you'll start to feel more of this discourse between when you're eating something and then you immediately get a stomach ache and you're like, "Ah, I used to eat these things all the time and it didn't bother me, but now it does." And you'll do the thing that humans do, is what she's saying, and you'll blame it on getting older or whatever.
mhm,
But she's saying it has a lot to do with understanding yourself, like understanding how your body is reacting to things and to start really paying attention and listening to that. It's interesting because I say this quite a bit to my loved ones and my friends and family and stuff. And like we are walking around in the most highly technologically advanced thing that is on this planet, in my opinion, and that is our physical form. It knows what to do if we only listen to it. And I'm telling that to myself and not just to those listening because I ignore it quite a bit sometimes. Not all the time, sometimes. And it has led me to have very not fun reactions. So, like an upset stomach or a headache. She's also bringing up the headaches, and she's bringing up the whole, like, getting headaches quite a bit as a way to not agreeing with the things that are, like, in your air, in your water, and in your food.
mm, mhm.
So that's interesting.
So, some of this intuition or intuitive hits that Shira and I shared, is this more about cleansing of the body, or is this more about preparing for potential lacks in the world today?
I'm asking her why I got, like, a very quick image of Saturn, so one sec. She's showing me a calendar. And it looks as if the calendar is, like, flipping to the next month, to the next month, to the next month, and then eventually it changes years as it flips, right?
Okay.
She's not showing me the dates. She won't provide
Yeah.
that to me, but she is marking an X at the end of one of the months on that calendar, but it had flipped through quite a few pages. Again, she's not showing me dates. She said that that's not for our highest and greatest good, so okay. She's giving me the analogy about drying your hair. Okay. I'm gonna roll with this. So she's saying that, like, like when you get out of the shower and you need to go to work, but you don't want to go to work with wet hair because maybe it's cold outside. So you dry your hair in a towel first and then you use a blow dryer to finish it off. And those are you taking the steps and the actions to get to your endpoint, like, or to like your destination or whatever. So she's using that analogy for some reason, maybe just because I relate to it. But like she's showing me just being prepared will allow less, she did use the word chaos, would allow less chaos.
Mm.
She kinda zoomed in on me right quick, like, where I just mostly saw, like, her left eye, so I'm sorry. That was I'm gonna pop out for just a second from that. But, like, I just saw the long eyelashes in her left eye, like, she zoomed in really quick. Um, it shook me a little.
I see
So
that, I see that.
I was like, "Whoa." Ask the question one more time, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I have a slightly different question.
Okay.
Okay. So, what should be our focus? Some of this information can very easily be taken and shifted into that fear-based thinking rather than preparation. So, what should we focus on to stay in that highest vibration and still prepare ourselves without falling into the fear? So, what should we focus on?
She said, "Get your body right."
Yeah, okay, so going right back to that cleansing.
Mhm. She said, "You should focus on your body and your physical experience and get your body right," is exactly what she just said. So, she's explaining the connection between your mind,
Mm.
your physical mind, and your body. She's showing me this yo-yo, like, toy. When I say showing me, it's not like she's holding a yo-yo, she's flashing images that I can relate to. So, kind of going this, like, we've been very accustomed to going, up and down, up and down, up and down. Like, for instance, she's saying, like, when you're feeling sad and you wanna, like, kinda nosedive into, like, foods that make you feel better, even though you know it's gonna give you a tummy ache later, or it's gonna give you a headache if you drink too much and things of that nature. Again, your physicality, your physical human form cannot consistently sustain in that state if you continue to stay in the depressed state as well. So she's talking about shifting into a higher vibration mentally, but it also works hand in hand with your body. And so eating better, eating cleaner foods. There's a collective agreement. She's showing me like a contract for the planet. There's a collective agreement for things to change.
I
Okay,
thi
this is
I
good.
think a lot of us can be on board with that.
Yeah, this is good. There's a collective agreement for things to change. There's a need for things to change. And all of your, she's saying, I'm going to say this, all of your souls know this. All of your souls have agreed to this. And this is to assist with the love that we have for the being known to you as Gaia. I feel like there's a much bigger effort than what I can actually comprehend going on behind the scenes.
I actually got that same feeling just
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah,
There's this is like a small focus, and there's so much more at work that we can't understand or grasp with our minds. I was gonna call them
yeah.
small minds, but
We got big brains.
yeah, we just
Um,
use only 10% of it, you know?
activate the rest. No, don't. But, like
I don't know, I'm all for that. Test it out. Give me 5 minutes. Let me decide. Give me a heat check, and I'll let you know if I'm gonna, like, pull the lemon law or not.
Today, I'll take 30 seconds of full brain activation and go. Strap in. That's funny.
So, if Ara wouldn't mind sharing, outside of working to cleanse our bodies of toxins, what are some other things that we can do to prepare? Maybe like 1 or 2 other things.
She's showing me the idea that I had presented. I think we talked about it, Carrie, and I had mentioned this to my husband, but she's showing me this, like she's showing me hands kinda doing like this. Imagine for those of you not watching this on YouTube, my fingertips are touching, not full prayer, but just kind of like tented, and then she's showing me this, like, the fingers intertwining after that, and she's talking about community and gathering together for sustainability. Talk to your neighbors, is what she said. Talk to your neighbors. Ask them if they too are gardening. Discuss where you can start building trades, is what she just said. I heard farmers markets are a good idea. Assisting farmers that have been around for a long time, gaining knowledge from them. She's showing me like emptying your closets, like where you go through and you do kind of like a spring clean and you get more organized with the things that you actually really want to keep and the things that you don't, donating to those in need is what she said, to be supportive of your community. So I'm getting a lot of community effort there.
That is one thing. So I guess best case scenario, nothing happens and nothing changes as far as our access to foods and goods and hardware and whatever. And if you've bought an extra supply,
Mhm.
you get to donate some of that food
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
realize that we don't need it. We don't
Yep.
need the extra stock.
Yeah. I like that idea of, like, being able to you've heard of those, like, community gardens, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Where some people I've seen image I feel like I've seen this, like, on the news or, like, on TikTok or something.
There's several
Um,
around Austin.
yeah. Like, where you either have, like, a community garden or some people transition their entire front yards into, like,
Oh,
gardens,
yeah. Yeah.
but I see it more like, she's showing it to me in my mind, of more of, like, neighborhoods doing that.
Yeah, because that is one thing, right? Is if something happens to where we don't have access to power,
Mhm.
right? Like gas, plugging in your electric car to the wall to charge it, then we
Yeah.
would need to have those resources close by. So
Yeah.
having them within the community.
What's really weird is that she brought up that clean drinking water bit, and I've been thinking about learning how to do, like, rainwater collections.
I'll have to send you my YouTube video of my
Did you
collection.
look at it too?
Oh, yeah, I've got a
Oh
list
my
going.
gosh. Do y'all see this?
Um
Hilarious.
Quick plug, if anybody wants a little bit of guidance on how to connect with your body and do a body check-in, we will put a link below connecting it to another episode specifically to where we walk you through that. So just wanted to point that out below.
So
Well, let me thank Ara for coming in and chatting with us. If she has any additional intuitive hits while we do the collective card reading, we welcome her and any input or advice as well.
yes, thank you so much, Ara. That was super enlightening. All right. It's collective card reading time, y'all. Okay, that came out with a quickness. And look at that. I asked for
What
3
cards are we
cards.
using?
Oh, yeah. I asked for 3 cards and I got 3 cards. It just jumped right out of my
Dang.
deck. All right. So we are using I was going to try to read that upside down. We are using the Psychic Tarot Oracle deck by John Holland.
Perfect.
Mhm. And let's see what I got her. I don't know which one came out first, so I'm not know which one came out first. So I'm just going to kind of go with the top.
I feel like you just show them all three at the same time.
Let me show all 3 at the same time. Can I do that? I don't even know if my fingers will let me do that. Let's see here. You mind reading that one for me?
Okay, so we've got wisdom, discontentment and boredom, and deception and envy. Ooh, oof, oof. Okay, so deception and envy. All right. This guy kind of reminds me of like a mythological character. Who is it? Narcissist? Narcissist? I don't know. Kind of, I don't remember my Greek mythology. But he's wearing a green robe he's got a green background. There's like this mask that he has lifted up above his eyes, and he's kind of given this like glare off to the side, like throwing some
Those.
shade. So this is interesting because in the astrology community, there's been a lot of discussion about deceptions
Hmm.
coming to light. And this
Ooh.
conversation has been a growing conversation over probably like the past year. And the turmoil that we're experiencing right now is in part because of the deception that we've been living under for
Yeah.
decades. And now everything feels so just like, "What? How could they be lying about this?" Like, so surprised. Everybody's just, like, thrown off their rocker, and which is understandable. I'm not judging that reaction by any means. The reason that we're needing to see these things however traumatic or terrible they are, we have to bring them into the light.
Yep,
Because if we are not aware of these things that are going on, we cannot do anything to change them.
exactly. And what's interesting about this particular card and what you just said is that, and I'm only gonna read from the book super quickly, but the very first sentence literally says, "To be forewarned is to be forearmed."
So, having the preparation, those intuitive hits to prepare.
Yep. She's like, "I'm done here. We're good. Enough said. Don't even need to go to other cards."
There's your wisdom right there.
I was gonna say, bring on that wisdom, right? Like, oh my gosh.
What was that middle card in between?
The discontent and boredom.
Mm, is this for me?
First of all, I'm getting a lot of the chakra alignment. I'm hearing
Mhm.
chakra alignment as I see the colors down below, on the balcony that this man is standing on. He's facing away from looking out towards the sky, the greenery. There's a castle in the background.
It's like he's
Um,
standing towards the shadow
right,
rather than with the light behind him. Yeah.
right. He's putting his back towards the light and the
And
colors.
he looks like he is experiencing a little bit of sorrow.
Yeah, yeah. And this is an emotions card, on this deck. And it's a number 4, which, man, have I been getting a lot of that. And this is to talk about the feeling of restlessness and impatience that surround you. So, it
Mm,
does say
this
a
hold
relationship,
yeah.
project, or situation isn't moving forward fast enough.
So,
Oh, boy.
before you said that last little bit, I do get that restlessness.
Mhm.
I and maybe I'm pulling a little bit of my own experiences into this, but for me, boredom is a special place to get to in this point in my life. Let me explain.
Okay.
Our lives are inundated with to-dos.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
So
Yeah.
to have peace and space to just be in your own energy long enough to get to the point of boredom leads to creativity.
Mhm.
And this whole idea that we are discontent with how things have been for decades and decades, in our view, how they've always been, because they've been very similar our entire lives, does not mean that that has to always be. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, but in this space of discontentment with how things are being, taking time to step out of the action state of having to constantly do, and get stuff done, taking a moment, connect with your breath, find some space for boredom. Don't just distract with TV and social media.
Yeah.
Finding space for that boredom, we may actually get these intelligently creative new ideas on how to do things differently going forward,
Absolutely.
whether that's individually or collectively or both.
Or both. Right. And what's interesting is that this wisdom card
Mhm.
that was presented to us, it is very much in touch with finding community and finding a guide or a teacher. And that teacher can be there to assist you in the path that you are taking, or that we are I just heard it, that we are taking collectively, and that a teacher is about to present itself. So that's interesting because I kept hearing about that. You're also a spiritual being with unlimited potential. And I feel like more and more people are about to quickly find that out.
Good.
Bring it on.
Fantastic.
I'll take it.
We're here to support you.
Absolutely. Wow.
Alrighty, y'all. Yeah,
What a
this is
day, huh? Those cards are on point.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Whoops.
Oh, sometimes we wonder, like, "Wait, was that card just for me or is that for everybody?" Okay, like, let me shift perspectives here.
I know.
Let me not just focus on the tree and let me zoom out and look at the forest here.
It's hard. It's hard.
Sometimes, yeah.
But, at the same time, it the messages that fall into the hands and if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, if you're hearing this or whatever, it was meant for you. There's no mistake in that.
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
but again, take what resonates,
mhm.
leave what doesn't, and use your discernment.
One final thought on preparation versus fear-based thinking. If you know you're in a fear-based thought pattern, or if you're unsure, take a moment, like Shira said earlier, sit with that undisrupted for a moment. It may require more moments, but sit with that and ask yourself, ask your body, ask your higher self, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Where is this based out of? How can I support myself, my being, in addressing these patterns? And how can I help myself step out of that fear based thinking, use that information to prepare myself however I need to, and learn to trust that we
Yeah.
receive what we need when we need it, how we need it, right on time.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone so much for listening today. We really felt strong about having this conversation and just getting that information out
Mhm.
there that
Super
you
interested if anybody else has had these
yeah.
intuitive hits or thoughts. And also, I don't know, I've been really wanting to like double check prepper TikTok. But I'm afraid it's gonna end in the far end of the spectrum, and I don't wanna go
Ooh-wee.
there. Has
Yeah.
anybody else
Yeah.
navigated this?
I get
I
worried with
need
those algorithms, it's like once you look up one thing, they just start feeding you a whole bunch of other things to support your thought.
I know, that whole echo chamber.
That's a good way to say that. If you love this content, please give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you're not, subscribed to our channel and you're following us here on YouTube. And of course, as always, if you are listening to us on the podcasting platforms, leave a review. Let
Mhm.
us know what you think of our channel. And of course, thank you all so much for joining us today on this beautiful episode of Love Always Self. And don't forget,
To love first
love last.
and love always. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista,
And I'm Shyra.
and until next time, remember to love first
Love last
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.